What's going on, folks? Hope you're having a great Tackle Tuesday back here on Joe Bob's Bass. Thank you all for tuning in. Today, we are talking about one of my favorite soft plastics from this summer. Now, we've talked about a lot of tackle throughout the year. We've been doing this for about 8 months now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much for finally hitting 300 subscribers. Yeah, you leaving comments, asking questions, guys, really, I do appreciate it. That's why I do this. I'm having so much fun doing this, and I love hearing your feedback, whether it's just thank you for a great review or questions about the bait, the tackle, the rod, the reel, whatever it might be. Today, we're talking about the Missile Baits Spunk Shad. All right, and I've briefly mentioned this bait, probably not by name because I'm really bad at remembering names sometimes of baits, but the Spunk Shad, guys, was one of my favorite soft plastics from this summer, probably second to the Emo Kamushi, which you guys know I use all the time in various different methods. But the Spunk Shad, I throw chatterbaits a lot, and the Spunk Shad is a step up from your typical paddle tail trailer, right? Most people, if they're throwing a chatterbait, they're either not throwing a trailer or they're throwing a paddle tail on there, right? And the Spunk Shad, or really any kind of pintail bait, just brings that chatterbait to life, okay? These are the 5.5 inch. I've got this. This is the frosted purple color, so it's not white. It's kind of this pearlescent. I don't know how good that camera's going to pick it up, but they look white, but kind of clear, and they've got a little bit of a hint of purple, but I've been loving these. These are the 5.5 inch. They've got a 3 inch, 3.5, 4.5, and 5.5, as far as I know. They might have some more. I believe that they licensed this from Hog Farmer. It was not their design, but they utilized this mold and made some awesome colors that really pair up super great with some chatterbait colors that are out there on the market, okay? But really pretty simple. You're just rigging this just like you would a paddle tail, or really any soft plastic. If you're throwing it on a big, let's say 3, 4, 5/0 chatterbait hook, right? Most of those are 4 or 5/0s, I believe, if you're running a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce. And you're essentially, I don't have a chatterbait right here, but basically all you're doing is threading that through the nose, all the way down on the body so that lays flat. And you can see on these Spunk Shads too, there's a flat top and then a belly. I don't know how well you're going to see this, but there's a more rounded belly on one side. So you want to make sure there's hook slots on both sides, but there's a hook slot further back here for where that hook should go in, and there's a hook slot further towards the front for where that hook should sit, right? So you want to be careful, make sure you're not throwing it upside down. Not that it's really going to affect the action a whole lot when you're putting that bait on that on a chatterbait, but yeah, guys, this has been a game changer. I mean, I really think it did help me catch more fish this summer. Especially in the dead of the summer when those fish get a little finicky and they get a little frustrated, right? Because this is just so, I mean, you can just see even when I'm holding it here, these little tiny vibrations that I'm giving it will just make this bait go absolutely crazy. So imagine that on a chatterbait with that vibration. That thing's going nuts in the back, and then you give it any kind of jerk or twitch, right? And that thing is just accentuating that vibration and that movement and that twitchiness in the water, right? So if you haven't tried the pintail, any kind of pintail, but specifically, I love these Missile Baits Spunk Shads on the chatterbait. Highly recommended. Again, they've got some fantastic colors. I've got this one, and then I've got one, a blue color. I don't even remember what it's called, but a more of a blue teal kind of. And really, guys, I mean, just that twitchiness of the tail is fantastic. Now, if you're just wanting to maybe try to get some kind of action like that and see how it goes before purchasing some, I mean, they're soft plastics. We're talking about $5, $6 for a pack of them, right? But if you're really wanting to experiment, you can always just kind of cut this paddle off, and I wouldn't do it with it. This is like a 3.8 inch Kitech. I would do it with something bigger, right? Like a 4.5 or a 5 inch paddle tail, but just slice that tail off, and then you've got kind of the same thing, right? However, these are designed differently. They're designed with those ribs and that really pointy tail, and actually, here, let me take one of these out again. They actually have a tiny little split tail on the back, if I can see it here. Tiny little split tail, you see that? So even a little bit more flash, a little more action that's adding, right? It's, you know, super ribbed. Like I said, great shape to these bodies. They're not just a round paddle tail, right? Like even just these Kitex, they're just round, right? They're ribbed, but they're round. They've got a little bit of a belly on the side, but they're round, right? I've said that word a lot. These are not. They're kind of cylindrical. They're a lot fatter here than they are even like an inch back here, right? They're, like I said, they're a lot flatter on the top, a lot more rounded on that belly, okay? So, and if you guys don't know that ribbed texture, and I didn't know this for a long time, but that ribbed texture on paddle tails, these pin tails, all kinds of different baits like this, that's adding more deflection in the water, right? And there's times where you might not want that, right? There's the slim Kitex, the slim shads, I believe, from Guggen. I think they're called slim shads, but anyways, there's times that you want to be a little more finessey and not have that deflection, right? Maybe you're running on a drop shot. Maybe you're just throwing it weightless on a 3/0 hook and you just want that falling natural action and that tail kicking. Maybe you don't want that ribbed action then, but if you're retrieving it, especially like on a chatterbait, more vibration, more water deflection coming off that bait is going to trigger those lateral lines in that bass and make them bite, I promise you. So check them out, guys. Missile baits, the Spunk Shad. These are the 5.5 inch, my absolute favorite, and you will catch some fish. We'll see you next week.